So our final entrepreneur stage is Philip from Threadneedle Technology.
Good evening. Ours is a little bit drier. So I'm Philip. I'm a co-founder with another Philip, actually. And we started Threadneedle Technology about 4 years ago now. We called it Threadneedle Technology. Obviously, it's a sort of city name. We're from the city. So we've been in banking since the late 90s. And we would consider ourselves to be pretty clued up with regards to financial services, trading in particular, and now moving into some of the, if you like, the newer fields, so the app economy inside the big organisations. So more recently, of course, we've been involved in regulatory work. So with the regulatory work is coming a whole bunch of new challenges. So a lot of people are talking about trading this evening, but the flip side to trading is how do you know that your money is safe? One of the things that's perhaps most apparent in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years is how money can just slip through the system, how data can slip through the system. If you think about things like the LIBOR scandal, where in effect the LIBOR calculation, this interest rate calculation, should have been an utterly automatic and non-intervening, by humans anyway, calculation. In fact, it was sort of being fiddled around with it. So there's a whole raft of legislation that's been coming through that means that organisations are having to understand their data, and quite right too. If you're on the inside of any of these organisations, and by the sounds of it, a lot of you may well be, you know that organisations don't have necessarily the best handle on their organisational data. Some of it's really important. The KYC has been brought up a lot this evening. But it's not just that, it's how does a figure get from the buy or the sell button all the way through to the books and the records of an organisation. So quite rightly, these organisations are being forced to record, and because of that, they're finding that they have challenges around how they change their systems. So the larger organisations in the world are, of course, being hounded now by the smaller and more agile shops. So with our banking hats on, we came to the realisation that, in fact, it's a big collaborative problem. So we came up with Solidatus. Now, Solidatus is actually a rather old word. It's been around since the Romans, and it means to knit or consolidate. And it's quite appropriate when you think about our Threadneedle name. So the aim of the software is, if you like, to solve a couple of challenges. The challenges that the organisations have in terms of how they can gather all of this flow of data. There's thousands, tens of thousands of attributes of data flying around, and how they can then record that, be transparent about it, and, well, one of the big challenges they get then is how do they change their systems? What's affected when I add a regulation in? What new data do I need? And where does that affect my life? So you first of all got to recognise your playing field. Organisations are hugely complicated. Even small startups. We've heard this evening about how people are outsourcing some of the more complicated parts of their structures. And this is it, if you like, this is the app economy, but for small businesses. So they're going to companies and they're asking them to take care of their data, because companies have got track records. Presumably, if you've chosen them to look after your data, they have a track record for taking care of it. Data flows are just complicated things. I guess a lot of us here are probably developers, so that's certainly my background, and I know that I tinker with things a lot. I'm changing stuff all the time. How do I allow that change? How do I facilitate that change? And if I'm just one cog in the wheel, and perhaps it's a mighty engine like one of the larger international investment banks, how do I know that my tinkering with my little bit of the engine doesn't affect someone outside of my world, way down the track, or it doesn't affect someone at home who's just doing a bit of day trading? Things happen in organisations when there are lots and lots of points of data. Naming conventions change through through time, we might have had a piece of data that in olden times might have been stored in a database, and that database didn't have uppercase and lowercase. It's all in capital letters. We've got all the way through to some of the really modern stuff, models in JSON or XML, for example, in the back end. This all sounds very dry, but it's really very important to understand your view on the world and be able to see other people's view on the world as well. Essentially, it's a barrier to change, because if you can't track your data, if you don't understand it, if you can't knit and consolidate it together, the whole thing starts to unravel quite quickly. And you don't understand the impact of change on your business. And even for a small startup, that becomes very important. If someone's changing something in the way that you interface with one of your service providers, how does that affect you? And can you, if you like, work through it? So Solidatus is all about managing this risk. And it's all about collaborative journey through how you track your data and how you move it through your organisation. So I know this screen isn't potentially the biggest, and maybe some people standing back. So what I'd like to do is show just a couple of little demos of how the system works. We've got lots of features, bringing data in and moving it around, but we've got some quite clever bits about how we display our data. So this is a collaborative model. The aim for us is to build up something where if you're owning a bit of the data and you're owning a bit of the data and you're in different parts of the hierarchy, you may well find that working together but on your own pieces, you can actually piece together the organisational flows a lot better. Many of these things are kept in spreadsheets, but we think that in the modern world with collaborative technologies, web and so on, you can all work together to get this stuff out and, if you like, enable your change better. But we need tools to do that. So one of the tools that we've built in, once you've got your models loaded and you're updating it and maybe you want to change it, is we've put a lot of filtering software in. So we've actually got a query language of our own we've put in that allows you to move and change the model and then effectively zoom in or focus in on the parts of the model that make most sense to you. So here you see that we're filtering out bits of the data that are interesting to us. We're going to focus on, I think it's going to be party here. So this is counterparty. It's all very dry stuff, not very modern tech. Seeing how it flows through the data, focusing in on bits of the message traffic. Sometimes you're not really interested in whole parts of organisations. You want to black box things. Being able to focus in and to, if you like, remove complexity, being able to display things clearly, it's a very important part of being able to change your models. The other part we've got is a query language, where you can take the whole model. And bear in mind that the organisations, you don't realise it, even if you just look at your own bank account, which we try to do your own, you try to do your own accounts at the end of the year, they're enormously complicated things. You have dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of paper. So being able to get into a part of the model and highlight it easily and quickly in a collaborative fashion is extremely important. Here we've highlighted everything with the letters ID in the model. So we've built a little language interface. It enables you to, well, it enables us anyway, to bring functionality quickly into the models, and if you like, gets us to a point of being able to put functionality out as quickly as possible, and allow you to drill into and display the bits of the models that are most important to you. So, I guess the summary from this, and it's this is not a mobile app or some sort of I guess small startup tech thing that you can see and visualise in the outside world, and it does need a big screen to show because data flows are really complicated. But as anybody who's trying to put together maybe a trading app or if you're a big organisation, or in fact if you're just looking at how food gets into a beef burger, there's lots of different applications for this. Being able to visualise your flows is now becoming very important. If you can't visualise something, you can't really understand it properly. And I think I've run out of time.
Question for Philip.
What would you have said if you'd had an extra minute?
I think, having worked at some of the larger organisations, you see that every application developer, every part of a business has this problem at scale. And then the organisation has the problem at a different scale around it. So moving an item, a piece of data, through, if you like, from a trading desk, or even further the other side, from a mobile app, and tracking that piece of data all the way into a book and a record, or into a regulator. If the course select at the moment is something called BCBS 239. It's going to be very impactful. I think that the biggest problem that you see is that people don't understand the micro and the macro scale, and they can't put them together. But the regulators, they all want to see this stuff. It's absolutely clear. And being able to present it properly is now key. But the presentation, being able to do it properly, that's not the problem. Being able to update your model and keep it up to date, because everyone's willing to spend millions, if you like, to do it once. But to do it again every day, to allow change to the organisation, that's what the regulators want now. And they are out to close people down. They want to, and they should. Because if you don't understand where your data came from, where it goes, you shouldn't be allowed to operate a trading desk. You shouldn't be able to operate a big organisation or a small one, because a consumer must have the right to understand how the data got from A to B. It's no good saying it's going up or down. People need to know that they can trust that up or down arrow is accurate. It's like voting. If I vote online, how do I know my vote's been counted? If you think about it, it gets to be a deeper and deeper problem. And this is the mechanism, I think, to allow at least the flow of change to be at least manageable.
What's the implementation process of your solution into our organisation?
So for smaller, we've found that there's two demographics. There's people who really want to host stuff internally. We didn't really expect that when we started, because we wanted to be a sort of cloud kind of hosting company. Smaller people are definitely looking at us hosting, at least for their initial implementations, and then moving it in-house once they have data models built up. We also think the regulators are increasingly interested in using software like this as well. So the model is on-prem if you're really large, and in the cloud if you're small, and we're happy to host it as well.
Hi. Is the linking between one system and another for the visualization picked up automatically, or is it manually put in?
So we've done some work we can do some sensible matching, but where naming conventions are completely different, there is a human element, and with more time, and we're happy. I've got some long videos if anyone wants to see them. It's a matter of building the picture up by hand sometimes, and automagically if connections are well known. So we can ingest from some other discovery tools, and we have discovery tools of our own as well. It's quite a tough problem though, especially over systems.
What sort of data standards are you following, and how portable is the data? So say, I go with your platform and it's fantastic, and then I want to move on. What happens then? Okay, so the data itself is all modelled in JSON. And so, as far as we're concerned, that's utterly portable. And it's, in actual fact, the data model itself is very freeform. The guts of the work is done in the presentations here. So, if you want to pick the model up and move it, it's yours to take. In terms of technology, what survives if your company disappears?
If my company disappears?
Yes. What? In comparison to open source, what will survive if your company disappears?
I think the data model is clear and would be a good starting point for that. In terms of what the technology is today, I think we're finding that as people understand the legislations more, even actually since these videos were made, we've moved on tremendously in the display technology. Organisations have tens of thousands of data points. It might not be appropriate for this to be displayed like this in 5 years' time anyway, but the data model itself is the important thing for the organisation. That's completely open, and anybody could take it and then re-render it, I guess. The key, though, is to make it render well. It's actually, you can't really get it on this screen at this resolution, but it's a really elegant interface when you use it.
Okay, Philip, thank you very much. Thank you.